Well, we opened the show with Joe doing his identity shuffle, spewing these, catchphrases spoon-fed to him by some DEI clone. Now compare that to this guy. Joe is the mummy on Metamucil. That was Godzilla with gonads the size of Pluto. I bet there are male Democrats right now going, why can't we have that in our party? Where is that man? Where is that type of person? And instead, we have this emasculated husk of a has-been who can only operate on identity catchphrases that were just given to him. This is related to the segment's initial topic. It's not just black and brown men leaving the party. It's all men. Blacks just happen to be the caboose of this train leading the exodus out of the party. They appreciate things like law and order, rules, priorities, security. You don't hear that from Biden. Instead, you hear about diversity, equity, inclusion, gender, trans. You know what? Abortion is not going to get men to vote, but a disregard for the certain laws and principles that keep a society safe and secure for a family, that gets them there. I believe that this is Trump's election to lose, which is why you're seeing the media freak out. And it's not just minority or white men. It's working men. It's tough to work hard and have the party that you belong to focus only on freeloaders, activists, and illegals. That pisses off men of every color. They aren't fooled by the progressive tantrums of the non-binary screamers on TikTok that trigger the maternal instincts of the affluent white female libs. Awfuls. Thank you, Michael Malice. And the reason why there is such a problem with the quality of life is that men, not just black men, have been disregarded in this war on identity. We used to champion the interconnectedness of women and men, right? We're different. We're yin and yang. But now it's us versus them because it's the oppression filter. Men sense when they're in a place that they aren't wanted, and they're starting to sense that it's the Republican Party where they are wanted.
All right. So Judge Greg brings up a number of points that former President Trump touched on. One of them is he is running as a law and order candidate. But also he is facing this trial that starts on Monday. Are those two things combined, and how can he couple them together to be most appealing to voters?
Well, Trump ran as a law and order candidate in 2016. And I remember when he started talking about law and order, the left was insulted. They said, oh, he's going to be a dictator. He's talking about law and order, which, to me was music to my ears. It's in my DNA. But, what he talked about today, and to answer your question directly, I think most people understand what's going on. They know that when he's talking about a Trump person, this guy Colangelo from the Department of Justice, who goes from the Department of Justice to the feds, to Jack Smith's office, to Fani Willis's office, to Alvin Bragg's office, to help them out. I mean, you connect the dots. It's the Democrats trying to stop Trump. They've done everything. They've impeached him. They've spied on him. They've prosecuted and indicted him. I mean, there's nothing else they can do other than, I don't even want to mention it. But I think the important message today is that the president understands the intersection that we're at right now, which is immigration being the #1 issue for people in this country, and the fact that the elections and election integrity is so important. Because if the illegals start to vote, they're going to vote Democrat. They come across the border with Joe Biden on their shirt. They love Joe Biden. What he said, I didn't even know. I didn't know that if you go to a welfare office, they're going to say to you, would you like to register to vote? I didn't know about, I know motor voter registration. You go in, you can sign up to vote there, too. So we have to make sure, in order to get rid of this lawless society that we live in, where progressives are letting everyone out in the name of diversity, which is absurd, making us victims, all of us, that the only way to protect this country is to protect election integrity. And that means you want to vote, show me you're a citizen. You want to vote, show me that you are worthy of voting. Because even though there is a law that says you can't vote if you're illegal, the truth is New York City, a couple months ago, wants 800,000 illegals to vote in the next election. So this is a war, and they're in the front line, and I absolutely applaud him. And what he said about Venezuela, that crime is down 67% in that country. Not only is crime down, violent crime, the murders in Venezuela are the lowest they've been in 20 years. Why? Because they're here.
Oh, how exciting. That doesn't sound like great news, Richard, but the good news is Democrats and Republicans seem to be united on the free and fair election issue. They're both saying the exact same thing. We have to protect democracy, and we have to protect the integrity of our elections.
True. And listen, I want to start where the judge left off, which is the ideal of law and order, because I think this press conference was built as an election integrity press conference. And what the speaker got wrong was the law that was passed, when the motor boat law was passed in 1993. In 1996, the Congress passed the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigration Responsibility Act. That act makes it explicitly illegal for non-citizens to vote. Now, there is, in some places in New York, there's in Tacoma Park in Maryland, there are instances where non-citizens can vote in local municipal elections. That does not mean that they can vote in federal elections, and there is no evidence.
But do you trust?
No, wait a minute, allow me to finish. According to the Heritage Foundation's database on voter fraud, for non-citizens, there's been fewer than 50 cases of non-citizens voting in elections since 2002. So the idea that there's this mass voter fraud happening where illegals are running to the polls and voting in mass numbers, there's zero evidence. Not only is the Heritage Foundation, hold on, wait a second, I didn't interrupt anybody.
You know that, right?
But not only is the Heritage Foundation said this, the Bipartisan Policy Center has said this, the Brennan Center for Justice has said this, the FBI has said this over and over and over again. People keep saying that there's voter fraud, and there's no evidence of voter fraud. There's no evidence of non-citizens voting in federal elections. And until they prove that, then this press conference to me was null and void.
Then why has the vice president been tasked with saving our elections if everything's fine?
What do you mean tasked with saving our elections?
Because Donald Trump.
She is the one. She is the czarina, not only of the border, but also.
No. She's the czarina of doing anything necessary
we're talking
to
about
defeat
the voting.
Donald Trump.
We're talking about the Voting Rights Act, and we're talking about non-citizens voting. Those
Okay, well, let's get Pete Hegseth.
Here's what we're talking about. In 2020, COVID happens, and legislatures and governors and others changed the voting rules dramatically. Getting rid of signature requirements, massive mail-out balloting, zero accountability, no chain of custody. And in between 2020 and 2024, what happened? Your boy let 10 million plus illegals into this country.
And there's still
we have no idea who they are.
Including at the Heritage Foundation.
And they live and work in a lot of states where you don't need to be a citizen in order to get an ID. And then they go to a ballot box where they don't even have to show an ID to vote. So when I talk to people, they're ticked off about immigration. A lot of people, immigration is number one. But the next question they say to me is, Pete, but can Trump win? Will it be fair? Will it be fair?
Yep.
Every single time. And it's things like this. They need to push this issue all the way to the mat, whether you cite previous laws or not. The Democrats have proven they don't care about the law. They're not concerned about following it. They want ballots. And wherever those ballots come from, they'll take it. By the way, I didn't feel you shaking, but I could tell you, can you imagine Joe Biden having to debate that man?
Let's not change the subject.
No. That was my big takeaway. That was my big takeaway from the press conference.
It was an election integrity press conference based on a law that already exists in the U.S. federal code.
And Joe Biden couldn't answer one question, which is why he won't debate.
That was also a rabid press corps who had a number of questions for the former president that had nothing to do with election integrity. But there's so much integrity here. We've got more of the five coming up. Stay with us.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.